Welcome to One Bad Podcast. Here's your hosts, KD and Shaner.
All right, KD, so we chatted Made in the Name. The biggest thing that came out of this record is what we went into it to accomplish, which was getting our first number one hit, Raging Bull. There's a lot to unpack with that. My favorite memory maybe is seeing our faces on the side of a bus in Saskatoon. Our great friends at Rock 102 in Saskatoon got us on the side of a bus, and that was a first. That was one of my favorite memories. How about you?
Yeah, well, and the crazy thing with that is they didn't tell us, right? Like, I mean, I'm always texting with all those peeps, all of our longtime supporters at Rock 102, and I don't recall them telling us that it was going to happen. And then I was on campus doing something, and all of a sudden, like, pull in front of like Place Real, and I look up. This bus pulls up, and it's literally our faces on the side of the bus. And I had like, it was one of those moments. Yeah, I'll always remember. And then I think I took a photo and sent it around the horn to you guys or something. But it's just like, yeah, it as silly or maybe as simple as it seems. It's like just seeing your name and your face on the side of a bus. Like, it's more about what it symbolized for me, right? Like, and that goes for the whole number one itself. It's like, what it symbolizes is like all the hard work and all the sacrifices, right? Like, being in a band, it takes so much sacrifice, as you and I know more than anyone. It's like you're away from the people you care about. You're missing out on all these other things, but you're doing this thing, right? And all those nights, I remember when the song went to number one, I remember thinking, I often do this when something really good happens. I think of all the shitty things that have happened to get us there, right? And it's a way, not a way to bring me down. It's a way to just make me feel so grateful for that amazing thing, right? And give perspective, right? Perspective creates the gratitude. So I remember when number one, I was thinking of those shows that we alluded to a bit already on the pod, those shows where we drive 14 hours to play to 7 people, or the show where they said, "You guys suck, don't ever come back," or the show that said, can you cover System of a Down or Alan Jackson? And we knew we were screwed. Like, all those moments, right? And yeah, the face on the side of the bus was crazy. The cool thing, which I won't go too long on this, but like this, around that time we made the Raging Bull whiskey, right? And that was like, It was kind of like, we're always trying to think of ways to essentially pay off radio people so they'd play our songs, like it goes, like in a loving way, in an authentic way, bribe them, saying, hey, we know you got singles from Foo Fighters and Pearl Jam and Green Day, but here's some liquor. Can you consider our song? I think we were quite open about that, right? It's like, can you play the song? Will you at least consider it? And then we had this idea for the Raging Bull whiskey, which is like the Jack Daniels with the logo of Raging Bull. Yeah. So it costs about $40 per radio visit or whatever to give each radio jockey a bottle. And you can explain more of that because you made the label, so you go into that a bit.
Well, no, it was like, I remember, because we often would be like, like you just said, you go into the radio station, you want to hand them a T-shirt or whatever, and you're going to be giving something out because radio people, Gary will tell you this, they like their freebies.
They demand them, yeah.
Well, and I think it kind of dawned on me because I'm like, well, instead of printing up a bunch of shit, like we could get whiskey in every town and like put this label on it. It didn't make a lot of sense, like Raging Bull whiskey, but it was like, who gives a shit? And honestly, the reception was nuts. Like the stations loved it and they were asking for more, and it's like, I think, did that go into us going number one? Well, hey, I don't know, it's like, who doesn't like to get a free bottle of whiskey? And but it was cool because we were like, are we going to get sued for this? But we didn't. So
well, we knew
it's ask forgiveness, not permission sort of situation.
I was prepared to go to court against Jack Daniels, but I mean, and the funny thing was, like, so we create, like, you with your magical printer created like the sticker that could stick right on a bottle of Jack, so it looked like the real deal. Oh, wait a sec, I'm being told we have one here. Whoa!
There it is.
For the audio listeners, I'm just showing Gary still has I can't believe you still have this. Is worth something now. But yeah, so you made the sticker perfect, so it just went right along the seam. So it looked like it was authentically a Jack Daniels Raging Bull whiskey. Rock is dead, long live rock.
Well,
2017, and like everyone's like, how did you guys get endorsed by Jack Daniels? And of course it's the same with the TVs. Like, how did you get each TV to say one bad son? And it's like, it's just stickers. It's
Smoke and mirrors, man.
it's all stickers, folks. It's sleight of hand.
I didn't know if we were going to like fully expose, and I'm glad we did, because it was part of the marketing campaign was like, well, instead of printing up T-shirts and like doing a whole run specifically for just for the single, I was like, we get like 400 stickers for $50.
Exactly. The liquor really cost us, but
Yeah.
and then the great thing about it is, then the bottle would sit in the radio station, right? Unless the DJ took it home,
Yeah.
which wouldn't be very cool. It's meant to be shared with everyone. So it'd stay there, and every time they'd be thinking, what song should we add? And they look over, and here's the bottle, right? So, and again, this is all,
Yeah.
the whiskey means shit if the song is shit, So, I think the song was just, the whiskey put it over the edge, got them a little bit tipsy. But I remember, yeah. So to go back to the climb to number one, I remember just because it was quite a momentous climb. I remember we got sort of stalled out like number 4, which we'd never been past 5. So once we got to 4, we're like, amazing.
Yeah.
And they kind of hung there for a while. I think maybe it went to 3, and we're like, okay, but it was number 1 and number 2 were just like massive songs at the time. I think one was like Papa Roach, I believe.
Yeah, Papa Roach's their big comeback song was the one we were up against. Foiled by the Roach once again,
Foiled by the Roach. Yeah, not the first time a Roach really screwed me, But and then it's like, I remember our team was like, I think that's it's not gonna go past 3, guys. Like, whatever. And we're in the middle of a tour, so I remember ripping down the highway and getting no sleep, and like going to St. Catharines, Kingston, Barrie, like just going to all these stations, playing shows, and also going to the stations to just get extra spins. And I remember we woke up somewhere that was in like Thunder Bay or something, and went to number 2, and we're like, holy crap, we got a number 2 song. Once it goes to 2, then of course, once it's 2, if it stops at 2, then it's essentially a failure because it's so close to number 1 and you didn't get there, right? It's silver medal. It's like, what's the No Fear T-shirt? It's like the first loser, right? But second place. But anyways, once it got to 2, then it was like, I remember it was just like we were close. We were within sort of striking distance, and this could actually happen. And we did a crazy long drive home. It was like one of those crazy 25-hour drives, something we did. And I remember waking, because I picture it to this day, like just clear as day. My memory is pretty crappy, but certain things really stand out. I woke up, Julie and I were living with her parents at the time because we were broke, and I woke up to the text. It was like 7 a.m, a text from Mike at RPM, who is our radio tracker. And it was like 7 in the morning. I only got like 5 hours sleep. I was just bagged. Woke up, and it was just like all caps, like number 1, baby. And it was like, again, the charts don't mean much to me, but again, to hit a number 1, it's all the shit we had to do to get there, right? And it's like once you do that, no one can ever take that from you, right? Like no one can take away the fact we got a number 1, right? And we also didn't it wasn't like a major label just decided we're going to get it and put a bunch of money into it. It was the opposite, right? It was like we're like the little train that could, and we did essentially, we were an indie band who did it on our own with a little bit of help from our label, but it was just like once you got there, it just felt like, holy crap, what a euphoric feeling, and mostly I just felt proud of the 4 of us to do it. We did it together. You know what I mean?
Well, man, that is it. And honestly, when I think about getting that number 1, that's what I think of as well. Because you're right, like the charts they're whatever. Like even in those days, you hit number 1, you're not like suddenly, all living in mansions and touring the world. And like, it's like, it doesn't work. We knew it wasn't going to work that way then either. But it was because we worked so hard, and because we were always up against everybody's like, like you said, like we hit number 4, and our team is like, I think that's it. Like, we're this close. Like, can somebody stay an extra hour after work to like maybe help us out, or do an hour worth of work for us when they're in the office? But anyway, because it was so much of us pushing it, and it was so much of it was like the relationships we built over all of those years and all of the stuff that we'd done. It did feel like it wasn't even so much a win, but it was like, we did it. we kind of, in going into that record, we had made that a goal. Like the two kind of big goals were, and this is what we're going to get into in the next episode. The big goals were like, let's get a #1 in Canada, and like, let's start working our way into the US. Because, you know, love this country. It's the greatest country in the world, but there's not that many people here. That's why it's hard to build. It's hard to build a following exclusively in Canada. That's why Tragically Hip is such an anomaly. Like, it's very difficult to have a massive career really exclusively in Canada. And we knew we had to get down there. So those were the two goals. And getting that one was just like, yeah, just like you said, you remember all those times. Remember our first shows in Saskatoon, like going back to seeing our faces on the bus and like, you know, not getting played, you know, in our hometown, to now you kind of just felt like we were on top and we got there ourselves. Like you said, it wasn't like we got scooped up by a label that were just like throwing us stuff and making it easy. And like, we just, we were just up against it at every step, but we believed in ourselves and it came through, you know what I mean? So it was, like on a personal level, it felt great to finally get like that. Like you said, something that people like, they can't take it away from you. They just can't. You can't say, you know, no matter what, you're like, and it's not all about that. Obviously, it's not all about awards and charting and that. There's so much more. There's so much more to music than that kind of bullshit. But it was a target we set. And you're right. We've always been an indie band. We're still an indie band. Like, really, like, it's not, we're not the Foo Fighters or even Glorious Sons. Like, we were never the darling band of the day. So everything was like true rock and roll for us. It was like digging down in the trenches and everything was like on our backs, all the work, all the touring. So it felt good, man. And, you know, it was a good moment for the four of us, for me and you and Hicks and Granny, to have that moment together. You know, because obviously Granny leaves pretty soon after. We're going to get into this in the next episode, but it's like, I think the wheels came off in a little bit, because I think it's almost like, I'd sum it up like this, and you tell me if you agree. I feel like when you watch a boxer in a fight, it's like they're giving it their all. You know what I mean? And if they're up against their biggest opponent and they fight their ass off and they win, then the next fight, you know, they've been beat up so much that it's almost like you fought so hard to do that one thing and overcome that thing, that it was almost like, holy shit. Like, you kind of, I felt like we all sort of took stock in, like, I know I felt honestly kind of like spiritually, mentally beat up through the recording process, through all those years of touring. Like, it just felt like, I won't say like the wheels ever really came off in a big way for us. It just, I felt exhausted like I'd never felt before. And I think, you know, there was a come down after that big #1.
Yeah, no, the boxer analogy is great, man. That's spot on. So let's leave it there, and let's talk about that beating up Rocky Balboa in the next episode.
Let's do it. And I'm going to end this episode on, because I got like one more minute, going back to the Raging Bull whiskey. This is a great moment in that we've been ripped off a lot of times. You remember an early tour, we came out to Ontario with the TVs.
Oh yeah.
And there was a band opening for us. And then we saw online after the tour, they bought TVs and put their names on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I almost sent a cease and desist, bro. I was this close to sending it, you know.
Well, and side note, the TV they bought was like this tiny, like it wasn't epic.
No vibe, no.
But we did the Raging Bull whiskey. And after that, a couple of bands went and did the same thing. But one artist that I knew of, they actually were like, it was such a great idea. Like, I hope you don't mind. I kind of like took it. And so I teamed up with this, this person like paid like a distillery to like team up, and they did all this stuff. And he was quizzing me after he had done this kind of deal and put all this work into like making like a vodka, which, like, you know, vodka, come on. But, you know, he asked how we teamed up with Jack Daniels. And I said, dude, I just printed stickers. Like, the look on his face just dropped. I'm like, you know, we put like a couple $100 into the whole campaign, probably even with the whiskey. But it was a lesson. It's like, if you're going to rip somebody off, you know what I mean? Like, you got to do it properly. Like, you know, I was just, it was fun to see more people like try to follow the OBS path to success, and watching them fail spectacularly.
They got to make their own path, man. You can't ride the same path.
Yeah, man. Okay, let's do it in the next episode.
Nice.
Thanks for listening to One Bad Podcast.